months following the release of Red Dead Redemption 1 on PC and 70 hours of gameplay later, I have come to realize just how well Red Dead Redemption 1 holds up, even 15 years after its initial release. In this video, I will cover different aspects of the game, highlighting things I like and dislike about Red Dead Redemption 1. For the time, and even for today, the open world of Red Dead Redemption 1 works jarringly well. NPCs interact with the player with a large variety of spoken dialogue and random interactions. Of course, it isn't as variable as its prequel, Red Dead Redemption 2, but it definitely does the job, especially considering the game's age. In the open world, there are shops, whether it be for clothing, horses and provisions, or guns. Each vendor is a unique NPC with their own dialogue and personality. Minigames are significantly more present in Red Dead Redemption 1 compared to its prequel. You have Five Finger Fillet, poker, horseshoes, blackjack, liar's dice, and arm wrestling. These games are all fun and challenging in their own ways, with my personal favorite being horseshoes. Of course, hunting is also an activity available to us in the open world, however its difficulty has been toned down quite a bit in Red Dead Redemption 1. Pelt quality does not exist, meaning you can shoot an animal as many times as you want to kill it. Outfits are largely earned through doing activities in the open world. These include challenges like eliminating gang hideouts or winning a lot of money through gambling. These challenges give the player something to work for long after they have completed the main story. The gameplay of Red Dead Redemption 1 overall feels quite standard. Walking and running unsurprisingly feels just like any other Rockstar game, and the gunplay feels snappy and floaty, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Compared to Red Dead Redemption 2's more realistic and weighty movement, the combat movement in its predecessor is extremely speedy. This is likely a product of different inspirations during development, with Red Dead 1 being heavily based on action movies and spaghetti westerns, and Red Dead 2 simply taking a much more realistic approach. When playing on controller in both games, however, the player essentially has aimbot, and coupled with Deadeye, hitting lethal shots on enemies is very easy. I'm not mad about this. It's not as if the games are meant to be difficult, and the snappiness ultimately makes a legendary gunslinger, John Marston, feel like a legendary gunslinger. My biggest gripe with the gameplay in Red Dead Redemption 1 though would have to be the horse riding. It is unfortunately miles behind its prequel. Horses often feel as if they want to move in a completely different direction than the player intended, and the turning radiuses at higher speeds are abysmal. Not to mention that the horse interactivity in Red Dead 1 is very lackluster compared to Red Dead 2. Horses feel more like cars and less like living beings, almost feeling disposable. You can't name them, you can't pet them, you can't clean them, you can't store them. They kind of just exist not as animals, but simply a means of transportation. Personally, I absolutely adore the graphics of Red Dead Redemption 1. While they may not have the hyper-realistic look of games today, the art style and attention to detail makes up for the technical limitations of the older engine. Something that is often not talked about is the overall vibe of Red Dead Redemption 1. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but in my opinion, the game has a more western mood compared to its prequel. The story is depressing and takes place during the death of the Old West, and the art style aligns with that feeling. Of course, playing a 15-year-old game, you will notice some graphical issues, like pop-in and textures taking too long to load, and while these definitely should have been resolved in the port over to PC, they didn't really detract from my immersion, and I enjoyed the graphics for what they were. Fortunately, the modding scene for Red Dead Redemption 1 is growing, and major graphical overhauls are actively being updated by talented modders as we speak. The story of Red Dead Redemption 1 is exceptional and is arguably its strongest asset. New characters are introduced into the story at a fairly consistent rate, and each one has their own identity and backstory. Our main protagonist, John Marston, is a much deeper character beyond a surface-level outlaw gunslinger. His morality and ethics are constantly put up to the test, as he is essentially forced to work for the government despite his hatred for bodies of authority. He also has a surprisingly deep vocabulary for someone living in 1912, especially for an outlaw with no real education or guidance. A common narrative for the plot is John Marston being used and taken advantage of, with more characters than I can remember repeatedly telling John that if he helped them just one more time, they'd lead him to what he was looking for. What he was looking for was often his fellow old gang members who had betrayed him, who he was tasked with killing by the Pinkerton Detective Agency with the promise of no jail time for his crimes he committed while running as an outlaw. Ultimately, the Pinkertons betrayed him and killed him despite him doing their dirty work. Following this, John's son, Jack Marston, tracks down the man who had killed his father and duels him, killing him and ending the story of Red Dead Redemption 1. There is much more to the plot than what I just explained, but this video would be far too long if I tried to tell the entire story. My personal opinion of Red Dead 1's story is that it's better than the story seen in Red Dead Redemption 2. The feeling of being the last man standing makes me feel more like a legendary gunslinger than I ever felt in Red Dead 2. And don't get me wrong, Red Dead 2's story is also a 10 out of 10, I just felt more attached to the characters in Red Dead 1. I cried when John was killed, and while I was sad when Arthur Morgan died, tears were not shed. I think a major reason for this was that John had a family. During the last mission right before John is killed, he can be heard yelling that he is proud of his son. Knowing that Jack Marston lost his father before they could ever become truly close was a depressing realization, not to mention his mother dying 2 years after his dad. This will be a very quick section, but I wanted to mention how incredible the music is in this game. It is probably the most outlaw gunslinger sounding music ever made, and it really helps to immerse you into the game. Watch this clip and listen to the tune that plays after completing a mission.
Like in Homer's great Trojan yarn!
All in all, Red Dead Redemption 1 holds up incredibly well for a 15-year-old game, and I prefer many aspects of it over its sequel. After playing it for the first time only a couple days ago, I've begun to think that it's somewhat underrated and overshadowed by Red Dead Redemption 2. I'd be willing to bet that most people who played Red Dead 2 haven't played Red Dead 1, and now that it's on PC, they definitely should give it a shot. Anyways, I really appreciate you watching this video, and if you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I think I'm going to do a few more videos on Red Dead Redemption because I have more I'd like to say, so stick around if you'd like to see that in the future. Anyways, have a good day and thanks for watching.